Welcome to the Virtual Antics podcast, where we help entrepreneurs streamline their business to six figures and beyond. These short, sweet, and info-packed episodes will inspire, educate, and leave you feeling motivated to take one more step forward in your business. So put down your never-ending to-do list, because in this podcast, we are interviewing the best of the best in the entrepreneurial world as they spill their secrets to success. This podcast is sponsored by Nodora, the all-in-one software for entrepreneurs to grow their business with unlimited landing pages, automations, emails and text campaigns, and so much more. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman. Now let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to Virtual Antics Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman, and I'm so excited. I have my good friend, Daphne Valcin, on the call. She is a certified professional coach, professional speaker, and corporate trainer focusing on career advancement and business growth. She's been featured on Forbes.com and Voyage magazine as a result of her work. Welcome, Daphne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad to be here on your show today.
I'm so excited you're here because you have so much knowledge and experience to give us, and I just cannot wait to hear about it. So tell us about what you do.
Sure. So I own a boutique consulting services firm that helps to reduce manager turnover, and it helps to reduce any team culture issues that are often causing bottlenecks and confusion. And we have coaching, training, program development that we offer to be able to do that for individuals and organizations.
That's awesome, because that's such a big vital part of business, right? Is your team, especially if you don't want to be that entrepreneur that is doing everything by yourself, and no one wants to do that, right? Most of us got into entrepreneurship for freedom, and if you're doing everything yourself, well, that you're not going to get that freedom, right? So that is awesome that you help with that, because I know a lot of times we focus on like lead management and client retention. We don't necessarily focus on the retention of our employees. And I think it's such a crucial thing. I got into this business with never being a manager ever. And then within like my first 30 days, I had to hire 2 people. And I was like, what do I do? Right. And luckily one of them is still with me today, which is super, super cool. So what do you see? What type of mistakes or situations do you see entrepreneurs get in when it comes to hiring and keeping their employees?
Sure. So I've had the opportunity to work with over 400 individual clients over these past almost 10 years, as well as the organizational clients. And I've seen a few things come up over and over again. To your point, one of them is not knowing how to address conflict effectively, whether it's on the manager side or it's on the employee side. So some employees are wonderful as long as things are great. And when things are not as great, even if that's, whether it's confusion in details, or maybe the manager says something that was inappropriate to that employee, people don't often know how to respond in a way that creates a more unified culture and a more connected culture versus those issues that come up. So that's one, not knowing how to address conflict. And I think the second is for the manager, not being clear on expectations and details enough so that the employee has a great chance of success in a project. And I think both of those things, I too come from having times when I was, an employee or a manager where I made mistakes in both areas, where I was like, oh, I don't want to address the conflict because I don't want conflict. Or I realized I haven't given them as many details as I could, and that's why they're not being effective at implementing this project.
Yeah, it kind of boils down to communication, right? And I feel like a lot of us, I feel like in every aspect of our lives, whether it's our relationships or parenting or our business, a lot of it drums down to communication. And because everyone has different communication styles, and it's kind of almost like different languages, right? Like I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. I've been trying to learn for years because my husband speaks Spanish, and it's a whole nother language. It's something I have to pay attention to. I have to give it my focus. I have to learn the different ways you can say all these different words. And it's kind of the same, even when we're just talking in English. It's kind of the same thing, right? We all have different personalities. We have different ways we say things. The certain words mean certain things to us. And so really it takes a lot of attention, takes a lot of focus, and sometimes you just want to focus on your job. You don't really want to focus on, the relationship portion, right? So, what are some ways that as business owners we can help with the communication process with our employees and our managers?
Sure. And I want to say too, for the solopreneurs that, that might be listening, this is even if you're hiring a virtual assistant,
Yeah.
these things still show up. So even if you are the sole person on your team, but you have a virtual assistant or you have someone working on your website, so contractors that are doing little pieces of work, this also applies to them. So some things that they could do. I think one of the things is learning about personality styles on different kinds of assessments. I love DISC and I do DISC workshops as well, but learning personality styles so that you understand at the beginning, when you know their personality style at the beginning, how they feel best communicated to. I think that's the first thing that's really, really important. I think we do that even without knowing like assessment results. You're kind of like maybe in an interview, like, oh, this person's more laid back. This person's more, excited. Oh, I noticed this person really likes details, but sometimes we're not observing those things. So from the onset of you working together, identify personality styles. And if you know the specific personality styles based on an assessment, then figure out how to work well together before you start working together. I think that's one. Two, I think it's setting expectations with the person about how you want the work to go. So I've had a few clients who were developing apps, and the person who was developing the app, they didn't have the best experience with. So one of the things that they learned was before we start working together, I need to ask them questions based on what my expectation is for communication, for responsiveness, for detail. So if you already know how you work well effectively with someone, talk about that up front. And I know some of you all, you're already working with the person. An annual review, a quarterly review, your one-on-one check-ins are a good time to say, hey, I know we've been working together for a while, but I just want us to kind of recalibrate. It's a new year. And just talk about how we can work together most effectively. So let's go ahead and both make a list right now of what are, just take 5 minutes, make a list of um, what makes a work environment great for you, or what makes working with someone else really effective when it comes to how they're approaching you. And then let's talk about our list that we have, right? So that's an example of how you could do it. So figuring out personality styles at the outset, and then also figuring out expectations for how you want to work together at the outset or within your one-on-one check-ins, quarterly review, annual review, making sure you confirm that. And then I would say feedback. That's the last thing that I'll share. Making sure that you both are able to provide feedback on a regular basis. And I have clients that say, well, where do I put the feedback? Like there's not the right place to put it. Well, you can actually incorporate it into your one-on-one check-in towards the end, maybe. What is one plus about my experiences in my role so far, maybe from the employee's perspective, and one delta, one thing that I wish could be different. Or for the manager, what is one plus that I see with your work? And maybe one delta, an area where I think if you shift it, it could make a big difference. If you want to make it lighter, plus and a shift, or a pro and a shift or something, you could change the words, but basically having the opportunity to share something maybe really positive, and then something that could be a shift, and sharing that with the right tone, with the professional tone as well.
That is awesome. And I 100% agree. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was DISC. Can you explain for those that don't really know what that is, what it is?
Sure. It's an assessment that I really love. Apparently, I was doing a lot of movement just now. So DISC, it's 4 personality types there. We all are a mix of all 4, but we tend to predominantly be in 1 or 2 areas. So some people would be a D style. Some people might be an ID style or an SI style. The D is for dominance. So that style is more, they might show up as more aggressive, not always. They like to drive toward action. So you may see that that person at work is about the results. Sometimes there's so much about the results that they might not be worried as much about feelings on the team. So maybe they're not the person that might be doing a lot of talk about your weekend or your week and all that great stuff. But this person may be very interested in making sure that things are moving forward. The I is influence. So that style is usually the person who's talking maybe quite a bit. They like relationship. They want everyone to be unified. They tend to be pretty social on a team. So if you think about a team that you've worked on, you may even be able to identify who was what style. The S style is steadiness. So this person likes for things to remain steady and consistent. They don't like conflict. They are more of the people who are there to support you. I feel like the people who have worked with me on my team, a lot of my team members have been S style, S or SI. So they're like, whatever it is that I can do to help you, but not necessarily driving towards results. In fact, they don't like a whole bunch of change. They like for things to be stable. And then the C is conscientiousness. So these people, I like to think like clarity. So they like to ask questions. You might feel like they push back on a team, but it's because they have a lot of questions about things. They want things to be very precise and done well. So where a D person who's dominant, may be pushing action forward. Hey, as soon as we can get it done, the C person may be like, well, I don't understand why we're doing it this way, and maybe we should do it this way instead. So conscientiousness, D dominance, I influence, S steadiness, C conscientiousness. Again, you could be a mixture of styles. I've been an I on an assessment that I took, and I've been a SI another time years later when I took the assessment. So there are a lot of assessments that you can take online as well, that you can have access to. And then if you ever want to get like a more thorough assessment done with a debrief, so about an hour and a half or an hour, someone sharing with you how you can use the assessment individually or as a team, you can hire someone who does DISC workshops as well, like me or another provider.
That's so cool. And I love these type of tests. I've done a couple different assessments with our team. And then I even have another entrepreneur that I love to collaborate with. And whenever they get someone that they really liked, but they can't hire them, they forward me the resume and they attach the DISC assessment. And I love that. That is so cool because I can see right away. I think that's like the coolest networking tool is when you're referring people and you give them the assessment, you're like, here you go. I was super impressed. So that was, yeah, just so helpful because then I can see, are they going to fit in with my team? My team is we work together, our personalities are not similar at all, but we work like, especially like for the type of stuff we do, usually our eyes, we do more towards like customer service or even discovery calls or, the ones where they're really talking to my clients. And then my D's are actually more towards like automations and website design, things that they kind of do more on their own, but they're trying to get like the best results ever. Where some of my like systems and processes people are more on the D side, which is really, really interesting. But yeah, so there's some really, really cool aspects of it. I absolutely love it. And I love how they kind of fit into these roles. So that's one things I think about, but I also have to think about like, are they going to merge with my team? Because that it's just having a really safe environment for my employees is really, really important to me. Especially we hire a lot of like stay-at-home moms. And so, or women that are taking care of, that either have disabilities or taking care of someone with disabilities. That's a lot of times where we end up hiring. And so we really want to keep it a safe spot and not also, some of the more dominant personalities that I realize like they try to strive so much more for results, but sometimes it gets really overwhelming for like the S's, right? The ones that want to keep it steady. And so like trying to keep that environment safe is such a juggle sometimes. What we did actually at first, we had everyone meeting on the same day, on the same week, or same day of the week at the same time, and everyone would meet and get together. And then I ended up breaking it into kind of departments because I noticed that there was like so much and kind of entanglement going on, like the personalities, some people were getting seen, some weren't, some were giving opinions, but other people didn't want those opinions. And so we divided it actually into sections of teams, and I didn't realize my teams were like these teams of the same personality type, which is kind of cool. So that actually really, really worked for us. What are some things tips or tricks that you recommend to your clients for making sure that the team is working in like a well-oiled machine?
Wow. I love the story that you shared and how you discovered that having the team members meet within their departments actually helped them to really have a great experience together. That's so great. And I should also share with you, or with the listeners, and I think you already know this, but well, I know you already know this, but in certain styles, they don't always fit into whatever their main style is. So a D, even though they can be motivated by power and authority, if you look at the DISC definition, right, of what the D should be like, I've met some friendly, super friendly, awesome Ds and people who have that personality style. One of them, he told me he knows that he can come off more aggressive. So he takes extra care to be very friendly. So he is one of the most friendliest people that I know. But it's because he's very intentional around it. So to your point of making the environment safe, even if we know we lean towards one area, like I might lean towards I am being more social or being more enthusiastic, I know that sometimes I might need to bring my energy down to be able to relate and make someone feel safe who may not be at that high energy level. And that's completely fine. It's no problem. It's just being flexible and adapting to different folks. So that would be going into how to, have people who are managers be able to work well within these different styles. I think one thing is being adaptable. So being adaptable as a manager, if you know you're someone who likes to ask a lot of questions and push back on things, but maybe your employee is an S and they are like, we just changed to this cloud software. Why are we changing right now after I've already, completely transitioned to this new software? Then you might need to provide more explanation, or you may need to provide a timeline for how you're going to transition. I think empathy is also important. So putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Let's say it's an I person who's a personality style I, and you're engaging with someone who's personality style D. Maybe the personality style D would like shorter explanations for how the project is going and what you need. And as an I, you really want to share about also how you feel about how the project is going and some additional thoughts that you have about the project and maybe some new ideas that you're sharing for down the road. But the D doesn't want to hear that. You can use your empathy skills to say, you know what, I want to make sure I'm communicating in a way that this person will receive it. So I need to prepare to share the top bullet points about the project in a way where my manager is going to be able to receive what I'm sharing and in a way that's going to help our relationship to connect more. As I'm talking, I just want to say this also applies to marriage, and dating and friendships. So you communicating in a way that the other person is going to receive it. So adapting based on what you know about their style, but also empathy, just thinking about how is this other person feeling about how I'm coming across and how can I make sure that I'm forging more connection instead of division, knowing how this person wants to be approached and how I feel I would like to approach them.
Yeah, one of the best questions I ever got when I was still in the workforce was it was a job interview, and they asked me, what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? And I was like, oh my gosh, I never realized like that there's such that a lot of times we confuse them, right? So sympathy, you can, feel bad for someone, but empathy is actually putting yourself in their shoes. And I think sometimes we're so rushed in the day-to-day things where we just stay on the sympathy level. We don't take that extra step further to reach empathy. So I think taking everything you said and just reminding yourself to really feel what they're feeling. Think about how they react. Actually, the episode before yours, whole different another topic. It was about marketing and about consumer behavior. And we can look at data, and data can say, something is so long, and so you might want to make it shorter. But maybe we were talking like about a podcast episode, right? I noticed that my podcast episodes that were 45 minutes were going down to 20 minutes, and or my listeners would fall off after 20 minutes. And I said, oh, so I made them 20 minutes long. Well, he said, well, think about their behavior, think about what they're going through. Well, maybe, they lost interest at that 20 minutes, and that's why they're not listening. Like, we really have to take it a step further and really like dive deep into why people are reacting certain ways to really understand. And I think that's something that, big corporate companies, I love that they can hire you or even the solo entrepreneur, because a lot of companies have not worked like that in the past. They have not had empathy where they're the people that are literally taking care of their business and their baby and their money. And so I think it's really important that we provide, focus our energy onto our employees and really create that safe haven, because they're the ones that are really making our business run on a day-to-day basis. So I'd love to hear where we can find you and learn more about your services, because I definitely know we all need someone like you in our corner.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I love what you said about sympathy and empathy and the importance of empathy. It's so beautiful. So you can find me on Instagram at Daphne Valcin is my handle. You can go to my website. It's daphnevalcin.com as well. Those are probably some of the two best places, or LinkedIn. You can find me there as well under my name, Daphne Valcin.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for coming on, Daphne. It was a pleasure having you. And we'll talk to you guys next time on the Virtual Antics podcast.